Hi, I'm Marilyn Gale, Vilyus from WestHoustonAttorney.com, and I'm here to talk about visitation with children under the age of 3. Most of the time, children beginning at the age of 3 in Texas have what we call a standard possession order, or an SPO for short, and it includes first, third, and fifth weekends, either 6 o'clock or after school on Friday to Sunday at 6 o'clock. If you have an SPO with extended options, you can also keep the child Sunday night and return him or her to mom Monday morning at 8 o'clock or to the school at 8 o'clock, whichever is appropriate. And by the way, for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to assume that the kids live with mom and dad is the visiting parent, although certainly that isn't always the case. Now, if a child is under the age of 3, it becomes a little bit more of a problem. Let's say the baby is a newborn, for instance. A lot of dads aren't comfortable with very small babies, and if the child is breastfeeding, that makes things even more complicated. But even if the baby isn't breastfeeding, if the baby's getting up several times during the night in order to be bottle fed, that can make things difficult for dad who has to get up very early to go to work in the morning. And so in these types of situations, we come up with a customized visitation schedule. And what we're looking for is more frequent contact because we really want that bonding to occur between dad and the child. There are 2 ways to do this. You can come up with a schedule that's, for example, from newborn to 6 months, maybe then from 6 months to a year to 18 months, and so on and so forth. These type of schedules would include maybe an hour on Saturday morning every Saturday, maybe to increase to 2 hours every Saturday morning. And they would also include some sort of visitation, maybe for an hour or 2 during the week, maybe even more than one night during the week. Well, another way to do this is to not do it by a timeline as much as to say we're going to have 10 visits according to this schedule, and after dad completes those 10 visits successfully, we'll have 10 visits according to a larger visitation schedule. Now, I want to mention that as an attorney, if I'm representing mom, this is the kind of schedule that I'm more likely to implement if I think that there's any question that dad isn't going to take advantage of the visitation schedule, or if there's some sort of problem, maybe dad has an alcohol problem or some sort of situation, extenuating circumstance. This allows a little bit more control because dad has to successfully complete visitation under one order before he's granted additional visitation. So that's just something that you might want to keep in mind. Now, what if there are multiple kids in the family and you have a child who's 5, another one who's 3, and another child who's a baby? Well, you can do one of 2 things. If dad is comfortable and competent to have the baby overnight and he's going to have the other kids overnight as well, you can have an SPO for everybody. Or you can have 2 separate visitation schedules, one for the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old and another for the baby. And you know what I didn't mention before is there are dads who are fantastic with babies, and maybe dad was the primary caretaker while the family was one unit. And so in those kinds of situations, if dad and mom are all right with dad having baby overnight at a standard possession order, the court's usually going to approve it. But I do want to warn you that there are certain courts where the judge feels very strongly that a child under 3 belongs in the primary caretaker's home and that they are too little to be spending overnights at the other parent's home. So I mention that to you in case you end up in one of those courts. You'll be prepared for that kind of situation. Now, you can deviate from a standard possession order. You can do almost anything by agreement for the most part, as long as it's in the best interest of the kids. But if parents have a work schedule that demands something else, or maybe you have a religious affiliation that includes holidays that you want to structure a visitation schedule for other than what is normally done in an SBO. And the most obvious example comes to my mind. Maybe you celebrate a Jewish tradition and you would like to include Jewish holidays. We can certainly do that. In addition, there are family traditions to consider. There are some families where Halloween is really an important holiday, and the parents want to make sure that there's some sort of allowance in their visitation schedule, maybe to alternate Halloweens or even to have both of them participate on a particular Halloween each year. Whatever you do, the important thing to keep in mind is that we want this continuing contact between the parent who does not live with the child and those children. And the more that you as parents can work together to accomplish this, the happier the two of you are going to be, and the happier your children are going to be for sure. If you have any questions, call us at 281-550-6650 and check out our website at westhoustonattorney.com. Thanks.